so many people who are people pleasers are suffering with physical illness. And the number one thing that I see is gut issues. So when we're angry, and we don't even know we're angry because we show up like, oh, do you need anything? Of course, I got you. It's fine. Everything's fine, right? Mm-hmm. Well, there's a part of you that you didn't allow to be expressed, that needed to be expressed, like anger. But where's that energy go? It's building up and piling up like it has been over years right in the belly. And this has been one of the most slam dunk things that I've seen in practice.
Welcome. I'm Alyssa Nobriga, your host of the Healing and Human Potential podcast. A place for you to discover the multidimensionality of what it means to be human. Over the past 20 years, I've trained thousands of coaches in my methodology, leveraging my experience as a former psychotherapist, and I'm here to share with you all the wisdom and insights that I've learned along the way. Each week, I'll share with you life-changing tools to support you in awakening and manifesting your dream life from the inside out. We'll be exploring the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, really diving deep into the art of human potential through the lens of psychology, spirituality, and coaching. Let's let the magic unfold. In today's episode, we explore how environmental toxins can affect our bodies and why living a fast-paced life can actually be harmful to your productivity. And we're going to give you practical tips to live a happier, healthier life. We're also going to talk about emotional trauma and how it's linked to illness and how you can start taking natural precautions to help you prevent cancer. And so I'm so happy to welcome today's guest, Dr. Christian Gonzalez, or lovingly known as Dr. G, who's received his doctorate in naturopathic medicine. I have so much love and respect for him. After I was on his podcast, he's like, I need to join your certification program. He is a doctor who's so committed to advancing where we're at in the medical system by understanding emotional and somatic work. He wears many hats, from being a podcast host to being a trusted voice auditing health brands, and he's been featured in countless media outlets. And he's really on a mission to empower people with the knowledge and courage to take their health back into their own hands. And so this episode, you're definitely going to want to take notes on. I hope that you enjoy all the knowledge, nuggets, and insights it has in store for you. Dr. G, I'm so happy that you're here. I love you so much. And I'm excited to share you with my audience. And I just want to drop right into psychosomatics, because I know this is one of your specialties. Talk to us about what psychosomatics are, and then how does it relate to mental and physical health?
So the field of psychosomatics is always incredible because there's been that part of me as a healer, doctor, that has always said, give me all of the science.
Yeah.
And when I was in school, I was science heavy.
Yeah.
I go, I don't believe in homeopathy because there's no science, right? So I kind of like poo-pooed it away.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that we've lost the art of understanding what it means to be a healer. And the artistry is really the opening up of that part for the psychosomatics in my field, right? Yeah. So I've always had the studies for breast health, brain health, gut health. And I go, I'm not going to give this supplement unless there's a great study on it. Okay, great. I'm going to give this supplement. I was rigid.
Yeah.
And then there's the part of me that has that lineage. I swear it comes from my dad. He's Ecuadorian, but it's the shamanic lineage where I'm like, no, there's energy here. There's something I notice differences, deviations in people. This person who comes in with this disease sort of has this energy. I can't put my finger to it. Well, over the years, as it happens, you start putting your finger to it.
Yeah.
Then you start seeing how not only is there phenotypic or physical expressions to the body, but there's also energetic feels you get for people. And you go, okay, there's this person's holding on to something. And as I learned more about emotions, I started really seeing or connecting the picture between people's presentations without even them opening their mouth. How are they presenting? What's their energy? How is their posture? How do they walk? Let me see their face, their small micro expressions. What's the pain in their eyes? What emotion is there? When you start tuning into that, what's their energy, you get to start seeing a picture, and the body has a language.
Yeah.
And the more you become sensitized to it, the more you can start reading that and reading people. So then over time, you start working with those people, treating those people, and you go, oh, wait, hold on, gut health issues. And this person has this same thing that this person in the past 10, 15, 20, 100 people have. You start connecting, oh my God, a lot of these physical diseases far surpass that science because all those people go, I've worked with every functional doctor, every naturopathic doctor. I'm on every protocol. I'm on the best diets. I've taken the best supplements. And you ain't better yet. You know, there's something happening on an energetic, emotional, even spiritual standpoint.
Yeah.
When that becomes uncovered, that opens the field of psychosomatics. And it's incredible because then you go, all right, let me just use my intuition as a healer and also have the quote unquote data that I've seen one-on-one clinically and then start applying it. And oftentimes we're starting to see, oh my God, these people from an emotional standpoint are healing once they're able to express that which has been held for 20, 30, 40 years for some people.
I have so many questions. This is so good. But maybe ground it with a case study or a story just so we can get a sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is one that I always think about. There was a young woman who messaged me and said, Dr. G, I'm going to come see you. Before I see you, I just want to tell you, it's really hard on me. I haven't been able to get pregnant. Me and my husband have been trying for 2 years. This has been, I was like, okay, no one really messages me before I meet them and when we talk. But she already wanted, I don't know why she did that, but I think she wanted to bring that to my awareness that, okay, might be a case and maybe I could have more awareness and bring more presentness, attention, something to her. But she comes in and we're talking and I'm tuning into her. She's so sweet when I meet her. Yeah. Her face is soft or, she has a feminine energy, right? So oftentimes when I work with people, I go, okay, if you're not able to get pregnant, first of all, where are you on this polarity of balance of your doing energy or being energy or masculine or feminine, And oftentimes a lot of these women are so hyper masculine, so doing, and boom, 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 that they lose their period. And of course they're not gonna have kids. Their body's not balanced in this. But this woman was something different. She had that softness to her. I said, okay, so then we start talking, we start connecting our voices, and then we start the process. And she's going through it and she starts crying. Well, I'm not surprised. Oftentimes women will start crying immediately. That's the first emotion that they're like, okay, I can do this. I'm so used to this, right? Yeah. And she's crying and she's letting those tears out. And then I start feeling that the crying is shifting before the sound starts coming. And then she starts shifting her sound, but she's still crying, but shifting the sound of the crying. Okay. But then I look at her fist and she starts closing her fist and I go, ooh, something's happening. And then I could feel her body tightening and then you see her shoulders tightening and her hips tightening. And she's like, I'm just so sad. I'm just so sad. I'm just so angry. I said, okay. And she goes, Dr. G, my womb on the right side is tightening so much. It hurts. It's tightening. The womb started contracting in this, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to protect this. I'm going to protect what's happening because the ego's going, if you bear witness to this pain that is here, the belief system is that it's going to be so much it kills you. Yes. That's what the ego's protecting you against, right?
Yes.
So, and it's a survival mechanism. And the survival mechanism came on at 100. But the beauty is in safety, she felt safe with me and ultimately with herself to go, yes, I can face this. Good. So she brought awareness to that area. I pushed down with my thumb on that area, which sort of incited the tension a little more. And then
that's also called taking over in Hakomi somatic psychotherapy. When you physicalize what she's doing, the part of her that was doing it can relax because something else is doing it.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So it's a taking over. You intuitively knew that.
I had that book and I haven't read it yet. Yeah. And I'm supposed to read it when I go on my next flight. Yeah. Like it's a little blue book with a pelican on it.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm ready to read that. But so intuitively I'm like, okay, let me do this. So I'm pushing and then she identifies that she's angry. Yeah. Again, I'm angry. And then she has this vision and it was so not a big deal to her, but now it is to her body. Her ex-boyfriend in college, who she would say no to, she didn't want to have sex with him, but he would just force himself on her. But it was her boyfriend, so it was okay. And it was a series of that, until she broke up with him. And the body, the womb in particular, will remember everything. It'll remember when you abandon your no. Yes. It'll remember when you abandon your boundaries. Yes. And for her, all the memory was there. So then when that anger came, I'll never forget this small little woman, my whole little back house was shaking. And I was like, oh my God. I was like protecting myself actively too. Because I'm like, there's so much coming out of her. And you notice once there's this charge, there's a on the other side of that, there's just this beautiful coming of this part of her that she had no contact with. It was this charge of anger, that part of her. And then on the other side was this charge of like love, peace, clarity. And you hear her, she goes, oh, I feel so calm. I haven't felt this calm in years. Oh my God, is this what it feels like? You know, and it's coming. Fast forward, month and a half later, I get a full email saying that she got pregnant.
Wow.
She was ready to do IVF and she got pregnant. And she noticed, this was incredible. She noticed that because of this practice, when she would have sex with her husband, without even knowing, she would close her legs. They would tighten. She would reject that someone who loves her deeply and she loves him deeply. Her ego through the nervous system telling the body, protect yourself because sex isn't safe. So sex as a whole was not safe for her. Of course, the body's not going to accept a pregnancy, right? So this is the psychosomatics. This is the grounding piece to all of this. That's one of so many. And that particular expression was infertility through repression of anger and sadness in the womb.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's very clearly articulated. And the body is the unconscious. And so it knows and it holds information even when our conscious mind doesn't see it. So part of what I hear you did was support her in tuning into her body and listening deeply and allowing the emotions to come up and out. And another thing that you highlighted or that you shared that I want to highlight is the safety. Is really feeling that level of safety so that she could actually transform and let go of the anger that she was holding on to. The no was honored. It's beautiful.
100%. If you don't feel safe with your environment, it's perpetually through your life the signal, I'm not safe to be me, then of course you're not going to be yourself.
Yeah.
So most of us grow up with this experience of like, our environment isn't safe. Therefore, I'm not safe. Therefore, my body's not safe.
Yes.
So safety is the most important piece of the whole equation when it comes to looking at what's deep inside of you. And if you don't feel safe with the person working on you, because the person might stand the way someone gave you trauma or smell like the way someone who gave you a trauma, then you're not going to open up. So first, it's true safety with your environment. Am I even safe enough to be with myself? Once the answer is yes, then the big one is, can I be with myself?
Yeah.
So part of what I do in these processes is open up the space. Hopefully they feel grounded and loving and safe around me. Most people do. And it's up to them through my guidance, right? Through my support to feel safe with themselves. You can tell when someone's not safe with themselves because all of their awareness goes all the way up to the head. And they're like, oh, am I doing this right? Or I don't know. I don't feel anything really. I don't know. They're living in their head because their ego's pulling up their awareness from the body, the unconscious, as you said. But you can also feel when someone's dropping into safety because you can feel their energy go all the way to their body and they're in it. They're still in their body over and over and over. And that's when that proverbial onion starts peeling and all these emotions start showing up.
Yeah. And that safety also sometimes when people don't feel safe, they're hypervigilant. They go into their minds and they're over assessing what's happening in their environment. It's not bad, but when we do that, it's like, okay, that's a cue. That's feedback. I don't feel safe. And then teaching them how to in-source their safety is one thing that I'll do is like, where have you felt safe before? How can you create that inside of your own body and nervous system? Because as they are more attuned and they're more aware, they can create that wherever they are. And then they soften, they relax.
It's a beautiful moment when they soften and relax too. We put so much value on intellect and IQ. And we put zero value on somatic intellect and somatic IQ when both need to be balanced. And we, especially in America, live so much in our heads and we celebrate doing so much, that energy, when in reality, this energy is a being energy. It's a feminine. Let me be exactly where I am and allow what's there to show up, as you talk in your courses, showing up and whatever's coming up, allowing it to come up and then navigating it in a loving way.
Yeah. And I think people think that it's hard, but it's actually pretty simple. It's just the courage and the willingness. And I think the more we feel safety as the foundation, the easier it is to allow and presence all the thoughts, all the feelings, all the sensations. And I'm curious in terms of trauma, emotional trauma and physical health, what are some of the correlations or patterns that you've seen in your work?
Well, even besides from my work, big time. There's no disconnect between the unconscious body expression and trauma, right? What I've seen and the way that I've explained it in my head and now to people is that when a child doesn't feel safe, we were all children, doesn't feel safe, there's parts of them that become repressed. But that's not always the truth, because there was parts of us that were never repressed. We were fully expressed. We were 5 years old and staring at butterflies, and then when we were sad, we cried at 1 minute later, and then we cracked up to 2 minutes later. The adult does that, then it seemed like a crazy person, right? But like, we were fully expressed because we were unfiltered. And then the way that I've seen is just this connection between when you're in a household that's unsafe, of course, you're not going to be able to express those parts of you, which are authentic to you or were authentic to you, in a household that is unsafe. There's brainwave changes that happen from the ages of 1 to 6, 7 onwards in this theta brainwave state when we're kids, right? Like meditative, present. You are the experience. You are not the experience. And then this individualized, autonomous, egoic part of us comes online more around the age of 7. Now it's like, well, that butterfly, it's nice, but it has green. And I hate the color green because green is the color of the bad guy on the cartoon that I hate butterflies. Right? Like, we have this reasoning all of a sudden that involves, what is my choice behind it? What is my experience? And that's part of the human experience. We have to go through that. We need relativity to understand ourselves better. With that said, in a home that's traumatic, or a place that we go to that's traumatic as children, that predisposes us towards all of a sudden repressing those parts of us that were really expressive and easy and our nature, and then holding back and compensating. So I always give the example, like, let's say mom and dad, and then dad comes home and he's really angry all the time. And then he screams at mom, and then mom gets really quiet and you feel really alone. Well, you know that anger in the household, look what happens. Mom gets like that. So, I guess I can't be angry anymore. Or maybe I can't be angry out of 10, maybe a 5, maybe a 4. Some people shut it off completely. I've seen this over and over. And I talk about anger because everyone knows anger. Is in a household like that, there's 2 expressions. It's, I'm not turning off my anger and I'm going to be angrier, and I'm going to be a child who's problematic, or most turn it down and become these people pleasers. Because that compensation is the survival compensation.
It's a safety strategy.
It's a safety strategy. So we learn, it's biological imperative. We need to survive.
Totally.
We need food. So in our little egoic heads as kids, if we don't show up like this, we're not going to get food. We're going to die. We're going to be excommunicated. We're going to die. This is our tribe. So the truth of the matter is that, okay, can you bring more loving compassion to hold on? Maybe I've just been compensating all my life as a people pleaser, or an addiction, or compulsions that I live with, right? Or anxieties that I live with. And maybe, just maybe, there's a part of me that has just been so unbearable and unwitnessable and unlovable to be expressed. And that's protecting me. Oh my God, my ego's protecting me to survive. So there's nothing wrong with people. You're just being protected by you to survive. But now it's not serving you. So now the beauty is you have the power also, and safety, believe it or not. Even when people don't feel unsafe, you can go there to open up that part of you and start seeing what's been held in since you were a kid.
Imagine having a fulfilling career doing what you love, working from anywhere in the world, setting your own hours while making good money and a big impact. If that lights you up, then I'm super excited to share with you today's sponsor, the Institute for Coaching Mastery. This is my robust, accredited, year-long certification program for new or seasoned coaches, therapists, leaders, and those just looking to up-level their life in a profound way. We have an amazing community of students from all around the world who have really started their journey to expand with us both personally and professionally. And this experience is designed to give you the 3 things that you need to thrive. So first, you have all of the tools and support you need to move past what's been holding you back so that you can completely change the trajectory of your life. And then you learn how to masterfully and confidently facilitate transformation with your clients or your team, regardless of your niche. If you want to do health, business, relationship, or you just have no idea yet, we hold your hand through that. And then lastly, you'll receive my 6-figure and beyond signature roadmap that's customizable to meet you wherever you are. So whether you want to do high ticket sales, online marketing, or you just want to hit 6 figures without ever needing to go on social media, we've got you covered. And this truly is the most rewarding work in the world. We have new students now who have a wait list of dream clients in under a year. We also have seasoned students who are doing $80,000 months. And this is really about creating lasting transformation from the inside out so that you can share your gifts and serve the world in all the ways that you're called to. And I've seen firsthand the power of what happens when you have the community to collaborate with, but you also have the right tools and resources to really thrive. And so whether you want to do your own personal development, you're wanting to become a coach, or you're just looking for a cutting edge approach to really grow your business, the Institute for Coaching Mastery is for you. You are held every single step of the way. And so if you want to get behind the scenes access to the Institute with 3 proven transformational tools for free to help you create the business and life you love, all you have to do is go to alyssanobriga.com/tools, or you can find us at alyssanobriga.com/apply now to see all the details and apply today. I love everything that you're sharing because a lot of the times it's such an innocent, compassionate lens. Like we needed our parents to survive then. We actually really did. And so we abandoned authentic parts of ourselves to survive in our family system. What is not ideal is when we're continuously playing those patterns and conditions out and we don't need them anymore. So what I'm hearing you say is seeing it with a compassionate lens, like, oh, that people-pleasing part of me, that was the best way I knew how not to be violent in my family the way that my dad was, for example, like as somebody's example. So instead of going into violence, I went to people pleasing. And so having compassion for that, having awareness, and then being able to shift it, ironically, is through acceptance, is through compassion. Because if we accept something, then we can change it. People think acceptance is complacency, but it's not. It's actually just saying, oh, this is what it was. Thank you for trying to protect me the best you've known how. Let me upgrade a new way to authentically express and feel the safety. Mm-hmm. And so I love that you bring that into place. In terms of, trauma and illness and then physical, are there any patterns? I know that there's some research around anger. A lot of women that repress anger and, there's also cultural norms. Typically boys are conditioned not to feel sad, right? Or girls are conditioned to be quote unquote good and then caretake for others and abandon their own needs. I'm curious around the cultural norms, if you've seen patterns or also just trauma and physical illness.
Yeah. From I think actually back to people pleasers, how so many people who are people pleasers are suffering with physical illness.
Yes.
Right. And the number one thing that I see is gut issues.
Okay. Talk to us about this.
Yeah. So most people are expressing as people pleasers with gut issues. And this has been one of the most slam dunk things that I've seen in practice. And it's because that anger is being held in the belly. It's being held in the upper right quadrant of your belly, right in the fascia over the liver, right? So when we're angry, and we don't even know we're angry because we show up like, oh, do you need anything? Of course, I got you. It's fine. Everything's fine, right? Mm-hmm. That nervous, anxious, people pleaser energy, well, where's that energy go? It's building up and piling up like it has been over years right in the belly. Mm-hmm. So if we think of it from a physiological standpoint, that sympathetic activation is pulling blood away from your digestive system. And if you're continuously in that sympathetic dominance of repressed anger, because you have a volcano that's ready to pop, and on the surface, you're cool, calm, and in parasympathetic rest and digest, truth of the matter is that people who are sensitive enough will begin to feel you as it comes more and more to the surface. But that sympathetic dominance is doing everything except digestion. It's getting you ready to run away. So your muscles are ready, your joints are ready, your eyes and brain are ready from threat. But the truth of the matter is that you're not digesting properly, assimilating your nutrients properly, building up. You're not digesting, so food is building up in your intestines. You're building up bacteria in different parts. It can be in your small intestine for SIBO. A slew of digestive issues.
Yeah,
that would be the mechanism. But really, the energetics is it's being stuck in your belly.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that energy is unexpressed. And I've seen this over and over, over and over. Mostly, I see a lot of women. Mostly women are angry,
Yeah.
angry. A lot of women are angry with their fathers
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't show up emotionally, because they never connected to them, because, they thought just providing that's all they needed to do as a father.
Mm-hmm.
And so many young little girls seek that connection with dad,
Mm-hmm.
and it's expressed in the body. You see it. It's on the
Mm-hmm.
right side, on the shoulder. Is like the weight that they carry on their shoulders is so heavy. You touch it and it's like a rock,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when they're connecting to that anger that's all over their body, their shoulders relax, the weight on their back relax, their belly starts loosening up. I can actually move my fingers around it. It's not like a rock.
Mm-hmm.
And then over and over, my IBS is gone. My SIBO is gone. I can poop now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have stomach pain anymore when I eat X, Y, and Z. That's been the biggest connection. Anger and fear. Anger and
Mm-hmm.
fear, because fear is almost the same mechanism. I'm really scared. It's instead of running away, I'm just kind of shaking and freezing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same mechanism. You're in that sympathetic dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Your digestive system will not work optimally at all, really. You'll eat food, you'll poop,
Yeah.
but it's not going to work optimally anywhere near if you're in sympathetic dominance. That's one of the mechanisms of that
Mm-hmm.
energy.
It makes so much sense, everything you're saying. And I'm surprised that this is still, this is still cutting edge.
Yeah.
And like that, it's also very practical. It's very common sense as you're sharing it. But I love that there's a map being built and more clinicians are coming together to talk about what that map is and reporting from their clients what some of the patterns are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it makes also sense that with women particularly, I know if they don't, well, people in general, if they don't express it, they repress it, right? And that will show up in the body both ways. But for women trying to be, conditioned culturally, the norm is to be nice and to caretake for others. So if they don't feel safe to be angry, then they will guilt trip themselves and they will think something's wrong with them and they'll hold that anger in and then it still expresses in the body. So the more I think that we have the capacity to be with the range of our human emotions as sensations in the body, the easier it is to transform and heal.
100%. And this is a shout out to everyone. Like, if you're listening to this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
you are that one in your generation who's ready to do this. And guess what? You have no points of reference other than what's on the internet and what you're being taught. But like, we didn't learn as kids.
Yeah.
It's us trying to like figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth of the matter is, if we're listening to this podcast or doing anything around this work, then we're ready.
Yeah.
Our soul is bringing this forth and saying, "Hey, listen, it's the time for you to break generational stuff." And to even answer your question from before, like culturally, it's there's so many women who are so comfortable with crying
Mm-hmm.
and so uncomfortable with being angry.
Mm-hmm.
And those women, the more actually I could tell what women
I
are
was
more
one of
uncomfortable.
them.
Yeah.
I was one of them. And me learning how to feel my anger and my body somatically was liberating. So on the scale of emotions, I would jump to sadness over anger because anger wasn't healthy and expressed in my family. And so I would go underneath anger to feel sadness. And I also felt guilty for being angry at certain situations because I understood my family's trauma. So I understood at a young age how my family got to be the way that they are. So I was like, well, I don't need to express my anger because then they'll feel guilty. So I held it in. And then I went to a workshop where I just went for it. And I had to give myself permission to really be angry because it was my authentic childlike experience rather than my adult understanding being in my prefrontal. It was just like,
That's what we do.
it was like, oh, I understand. It was like, no, let me be true to my childhood experience and let this anger out. Anger at girls that were bullying me in middle school, anger at just different situations, which I'll talk on the podcast later. And in expressing it, not hanging out in the story, but hanging out in the sensation, just fully allowing it, liberated my power, liberated some weight that I was carrying in my body. I felt more embodied than I had before. And this isn't even, I've been doing this work for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
And this was during the pandemic that I found a new level that I hadn't accessed before. And so I just we don't have to hang out and focusing on the person and the surface level situation, but to really feel the authentic expression of what was true for us as a kid, just so it's allowed to come up and out is all that's needed. So focusing on the sensation more than the story. The story is good to activate the sensation, but once the sensation's activated, I have to tell you, like, what I got angry at my husband one time, and it felt like electricity moving through my body. I
Ooh,
was
she
like,
was open.
woo! I was like, for the first time in my life, I fully let anger move through my body without any resistance, without any story of what it meant. It was just a, wow, like this is, and then I understood why some men hang out in anger, because it's way more empowering than sadness.
That's the word I was going to wait for you up. Right when you finish, I was going to say, talk about power.
Yeah.
Anger. Healthy anger is healthy power.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand it. Everyone, you have to understand. If you're able to connect to your anger, you are in connection with your power. You are not abandoning yourself, because now you have boundaries.
Yes.
What is true for me?
Yes.
Your anger is so sacred because it shows you what is true for you. Where is your integrity of respect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important. Unfortunately, most people will be living in that unhealthy anger. So we're seeing it unhealthy power. Look at every dictator across the world.
Yeah.
They're just mad at their dads.
Overpowering another.
Overpowering another, right?
Yeah. And also distinguishing power or anger and violence. So anger is a human emotion.
Yeah.
Violence is an action.
It's an action.
So we all are going to feel anger at certain points, and it's good. It's feedback that a boundary's been crossed, right?
Exactly.
And I'm reading the book When the Body Says No, Gabor Mate.
Oh, God, yeah, it's a great one.
So it's all about autoimmune disease and cancer. Yes. And when there's a lot of people-pleasing tendencies, part of what I'm hearing, it can show up in the body as different dis-ease.
Yeah.
And so this is good research that's happening right now.
It's good research. And we have to be aware, especially again, in an anger thing, is if we're the more we express that anger, the more sensitive we are when that boundary is being crossed. Mm-hmm. We can notice micro sensations of being like, oh, I don't know if I like that, right?
Yeah.
In the past, you wouldn't even noticed it.
Right.
All of a sudden, how many people listening and viewing, I don't know, just like my wife or my husband, they just blow up. Mm-hmm. Well, that's because their sensors are not sensitive enough yet. Mm-hmm. So once you embody that anger and you truly feel what it feels like, and it's flowing and it's open, then you get to go, oh, honey, I love you, but I don't know. That comment just felt like a little like it came from your head out of fear. Didn't feel true. Like, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then clearing that air before you build up resentment. Building up resentment is going to tear up every relationship. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to, again, the women holding in that anger, it's massive. And you can tell the more a woman is talking from their upper chest and it's kind of like this, when they're out of that, because their stomach is sucked in and they're holding in so much.
Sympathetic,
the hold. But oftentimes in the practice, I'll see women's chest go down and their voice just open up. They're talking from their belly. Whoa, there's your true voice. Yeah. Right? But they're taught at a young age, they have to talk from up here. The reverse oftentimes is true for men. We are so men are so sad. Mm-hmm. We have so much pain in our hearts and we're so scared to show it.
Yes.
But we are comfortable with anger.
Yes.
For most men.
Yes.
I see a lot of people pleaser men too, but most men will be expressing anger easily. But my God, how much pain we hold in our hearts and how scared we are to cry. Yeah. And what's the consequence of that? We're not able to connect. Right. We're not able to connect with our wives, with our partners, with our daughters, because we can't emotionally hold them because we're just completely ignoring our own capacity to hold emotion. We have to be connected with our heart if we want to have a deeper connection with our lovers.
100%.
Period.
What would you say to, I know we're talking gender norms and cultural norms, but what would you say to somebody that doesn't feel safe to feel? I mean, I had a post that went viral around being vulnerable and speaking from that vulnerable truth. And all these men were commenting, if I speak my vulnerable truth, my wife will use that against me, or my partner will hurt me with that information. That broke my heart. What would you say to somebody that feels that way?
That's a tough one, because oftentimes we'll be in a relationship for all of those things to come up.
Yes.
Right? We'll be in the relationship for us to finally speak our vulnerable truth. And then when it's not met with love, stay still in our vulnerable truth. That's not a mistake. Now with that empowered self, new self, then you make a decision. Hold on, if this person can't hold me, why am I with her? I've been married to her for 20 years, but every time I open up, no, more important to me is the expression of authentic parts of me, including vulnerability.
Yes.
And if vulnerability is number one thing in your space to heal who you are, and you need to speak your truth, open up your throat, speak from your heart,
Yeah.
and your partner can't hold it, and she or he is not willing to meet you there,
Yeah.
or using that from their own traumas, projecting it on you, then my God, it's about time to make a decision, right? So I understand how difficult that can be.
Yes.
I would also say practicing, you need to have your own experience. If you're having a co-experience with someone else and parts of you are just identified with them, then of course you're going to be entangled so much in this whole experience and you're not going to be able to be your own self. It's very important to work on yourself. It's very important to work with your body, dropping your awareness into your body, just knowing where you're holding tension. Just knowing where you're holding tension day to day will be massive for you, because that tension, that body is going to start talking to you. It's going to start revealing what's there. Practicing meditation, these things, just getting quiet, are going to be able to give you guidance on what parts of you need to be expressed for better health. Now, from that point, that's your reference point. Once you find your grounding in that, then you start making decisions around everything in your life: people, places, things, situations, partners. This is where you make your decision. If you feel lost, you got to get your grounding first. Identify who you are in your own integrity. Integrity is the boundaries of who you are as a person. Do you know who you are? Can you start building up that person of who you truly are, minus the work, minus the religion, minus the clothes? Can you embody that integrity? And then from that integrity, start making decisions in your life, including partnership.
That's right. And I keep coming back to safety, because and I love what you were saying, like, notice where you're holding contraction, because even right now, as just speaking with you, I'm like, oh, I can feel contraction in my belly. Yeah. Just as soon as I saw it, there's a softening, there's the breath into it. Yes. And so the more we can track and we're aware of, because sometimes there's no reason not, like, it can just be a habit of just going into a hold somatically, a contraction. And so the more we're aware, the more we can build safety, the more the defenses drop and the more we feel safe to speak from our vulnerability. And so if your partner can't necessarily, oftentimes you attract somebody that's going to bring up all your wounds. Yeah. And it's designed that way so that you can see it and heal it. And so if we get stuck focusing on the partner, then we miss the opportunity to see what was triggered, what was unresolved within us, and then resolve it at the root. And so by insourcing safety, creating that safety for ourselves, we'll feel safe, we'll feel more safe even in the dynamic of being triggered. And we can also compassionately see that they're not feeling safe, and this is their defensive part, rather than dropping into their vulnerability and the truth underneath all of that. And so it can extend some compassion to find your way together, but it always starts with us. And I love that you come back to that.
It has to. It has to. And look, just because I've done this work does not mean like I've always been like this. Yeah. I've been in my cycle in relationships was to abandon myself for another, right? So making sure that she's okay and she feels loved and she feels happy. Yeah. And then like, well, 6 months later, I'm like, well, what about me? How do I feel? Right. And that was the cycle. But the truth of the matter is that I would abandon myself because I didn't want to see my fear, my anger, my shame, my guilt, and the depth of sadness that I had. Yes. Right. So why not move my energy into someone else, pour into them, so I don't have to look at that?
So good that you're honest with that, because then it's like, okay, what's the benefit? Yeah. What do I think I'm getting for not taking care of myself? Then I get to feel good about helping others, or this personality that I think I am. And sometimes I notice I look at life through the lens of the personality assessment of the Enneagram. Yeah. And 2's the helpers in the Enneagram. Oftentimes when they abandon themselves, they can pendulum towards 8, the challenger, which then they've been people pleasing and helping. And then they're angry if they're not conscious, and they swing to the other side and get super angry. So it's also what you were talking about, the micro noticing when you start to slow it down so you can pay attention. When do I not feel safe? When am I angry? How do I create that safety so I can speak that I don't feel safe? You know, in your whoever you feel closest with, to speak your truth, to start there.
And how many people are guilty of that, right? Not having a clear integrity of who you are. So instead, abandoning yourself, micro abandonments throughout the days, weeks, years of a relationship for someone else's happiness. Of course, you want to make your partner happy. You want to show up for your partner, but not at your expense. And when you do that, that's exactly what would happen. I'd have this resentment. Like, well, why? Well, I'm angry. You know, what's going on? Like, this is such a disproportionate reaction to something going on. The truth of the matter is I was angry at myself. Yeah. I was abandoning myself.
That's right.
I was never asking myself, do I want to go to this movie? Do I want to go out to this party? Do I want to rest at home? Right. And that's, it takes a somatic awareness.
Yeah.
Because if you're in your head, like I was, and my whole human experience was in my head, then of course you're not going to be able to feel what you want. You're just going to try to be logical about like, oh, well, I haven't seen this person in a while. Maybe I should go, and, she would be mad if I didn't, or blah, blah, blah. The truth is, if I go, okay, hold on, let me just feel into like what's true. You take 1 minute and then you go, I actually do want to go to a party. I feel good. I have good energy. Let's go.
Yeah.
If you can do that, just break that, take a minute. I promise you those microaggressions, micro resentments, micro repressions will begin to move away. And then your integrity starts coming up.
Yeah. And I love coming back to just slowing down and tuning in. I know that Paul Ekman talks about we have 6 basic human emotions, and all other emotions are a variation of these 6. So the 6 are sadness, happiness, fear, anger, surprise, and disgust. And so from those, it's like when we can just allow our full human experience, breathing into and allowing those emotions as sensations in the body, they move through. And so I try to tell, it's like when we don't think of an emotion as good, quote unquote, or bad,
Right.
it's just energy. And when it's just energy and you allow it, it can pass. So presence and acceptance, ironically, is what transforms it. And so we know that neuroscience has shown us it takes 90 seconds to feel an emotion before it moves through the nervous system. And so if that's the case, then anybody has 90 seconds to breathe into and allow an emotion that's here. And part of the work that I do is I help my clients stretch the capacity to be with their experience. So it's like a storm that just moves through, and you have the ballast, the root of the ship, so that the winds of life can do whatever they do, and you still feel centered and connected to what your truth is as these things start moving through your nervous system and integrating a bit more. Like another analogy you could use is the iceberg. As you take those micro 90 seconds to just presence and be with that energy in your body, it's chipping away at this iceberg, and then eventually it moves through, and you're no longer triggered from the past. It's just the current moment experience, and you know how to allow it. So I tell clients that thoughts, emotions, and sensations are like little kids. They just need a hug.
Yeah.
They're just looking to be accepted, and then they're off playing again. It doesn't have to take a long time, and it can be much more simple. And so even with somatic work, and I think you and I similarly do, and I want to give people a reference point for somatic work, like what you were doing with the woman, the case study of just feeling this sensation. So sometimes when you have a tension in your chest or wherever, your shoulder, wherever it may be, by presencing that energy and just getting curious, sometimes an image will come forward. They talk about bottom up instead of top down in somatic work. So your body remembers and will show you. It's not from your conscious mind, which is only really leading 5% of your behavior change. So by presencing, say, the pit in your stomach or starting to speak from it, it will reveal insights that you didn't know you already had, because the body already has so much wisdom for you. So working with somebody can sound like what you were saying earlier, pressing on a part of their body that is holding so that they don't have to hold it. It's called a takeover. And then that emotion releases and it starts integrating. Or say you have something in your throat, you may want to presence that energy in the throat. You may just get curious if there's an image, an emotion, a sound, a movement that goes with it. All that is looking for is expression. And so being able to presence it, allow it, and then meet it with acceptance is all that it's looking for. And we complicate it, but it can be that simple.
It is that simple. And we don't need to go to the jungle to do anything like that. We don't need to go to mountains to do this. Like you could do this in your living room of your apartment. And the word you said is presence. If we allow ourselves to drop into that sensation wherever we're feeling and just be there, my God, I'm telling you, the body will talk to you. When I went through this process, and I still connect to my body every morning, but back when it was really intense, I was seeing things I swear wasn't even in my life. There was my genes were showing me something that it was completely not I was like, this is not the time period that I was alive. Epigenetics. It also showed me things that I was alive. It showed me memories that I never ever thought I'd ever remember. Never in my conscious. And like movie screen, like in my third eye, movie screen. And I'm standing in front of him, I'm like, I can't believe I'm watching this part of my life,
Mm-hmm.
which had such a impact into how I presented and compensated up till that day.
Mm-hmm.
So know that the body, if you bring presence to it and begin to move that energy, may show you colors, visions, taste,
Mm-hmm.
memories. I've had the clients go like this. Oh my God, why did this person come up? Oh my God, I can't believe this is why they're here. They're literally talking to someone.
Yes.
Like, why am I talking to my great grandma? I only met her once.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, your great grandma had something to say to you, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So trust that your body has a language.
Yeah.
Trust the more that you visit it, your body is going to share with you.
Yeah.
The more, this is what I would say, your body's conscious and it's waiting for you to knock on the door.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all used to be best friends.
Mm-hmm.
You used to go outside, you and your body were in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And now you knock on the door, the body goes, I don't know if I remember you, and closes the door.
Mm-hmm.
Keep visiting.
Mm-hmm.
If you go every single day, your body's waiting to reconnect and reconcile that relationship
Mm-hmm.
with you, the egoic part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you build that bridge, oh my God, you could just drop into your body in the middle of the supermarket and go, do I want this bag of rice? Is this like true for me? Hold on. No, I want lentils. Okay. Like your body will communicate that even.
I love that you're saying that, especially as a doctor, because there's so much of our outsourcing of our knowing to an authority, and to really tune into our own body's wisdom and to be supported in that, especially in a traditional medical field, I think is so valuable and important. And so I appreciate you bringing that, because we are wired or going to know more about ourselves than any other person. And so having that authority figure help come back to our own truth and knowing is so empowering. One thing I will say before I move on, a hack for people that are really interested in more deep somatic work. Having a story to activate the energy is helpful. Having a visual that maybe is revealed to you when you're presencing an energy in your body is great, but it's not the end, because then it's still in your mind. And you want to really drop into the direct experience and sensation, letting go of the story and a visual, so that it's pure energy. And again, takes 30 to 90 seconds to just fully breathe into it as pure sensation before it moves.
Yeah, and a lot of people protect themselves. They'll go up to their head, and they'll go back to the story.
I know.
I always tell people, your body doesn't care about the story.
Yeah.
It doesn't care about the detail. It doesn't care about the story. It only cares, are you repressing that energy or expressing it?
That's right.
You
It's
can
a
use
safety
a story.
strategy.
It's a safety strategy.
Yeah.
But this is why I keep telling people, you gotta get in the body. We don't need to talk about it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people aren't ready. And
Of course.
so like if there's big T trauma, work with a trauma specialist,
Exactly.
a psychotherapist, because there's also some people, and I always train my coaches this way, is like, yes, I train my coaches with somatic work, but they're trauma informed. So they know if they're starting to go, if a client is resistant to going to the body, it may be because they're not ready,
Of course.
or they don't have the resources to navigate it. And any big T trauma is great to work with a trained specialist.
You need someone to open up even that safety that you can go into your body.
And somebody that's trained to know how to navigate the nervous system in that way,
Yeah.
especially in the United States. There's more regulations around that.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And so, just learning how to say yes to all of our experience is really powerful. And I'm curious, because I keep coming back to the gut and the nervous system. And you were talking about earlier before we got on the podcast, I was sharing with you, I'm going in for a biopsy on my right breast, and I know that you got into oncology because your mom passed from cancer, right? Yeah. And so I'm curious what we can, there's so many things that I want to ask you, but what can we learn about preventative work, in terms of alternative medicine and taking care of ourselves in our 20s, 30s, or 40s to help prevent high risk of having cancer?
Oh, when it comes, cancer is, I'll put it this way. There's known evidence behind what you can do to prevent cancer that is around weight, obesity, right? Having a good, strong BMI, or building good muscle, reducing fat, avoiding alcohol, avoiding cigarettes, not eating processed foods. Like, this is stuff that we know, right? I use that as a foundation, especially when I was working in the hospital. Like, okay, asking everyone, like, where are you at? Checking them, BMI, or just BMI. Actually is sometimes skewed. Like, you just want to make sure that you're at a good weight for your body, and building good muscle. but then as I went through this process in oncology, I was like, okay, well, no, there's more. Because I've seen people with perfect across the board. I've actually seen people exceptionally perfect, and they were triathletes and they were athletes. I was like, something's going on, something's going on, something's going on. So there was a really important part of my career where I was working with this client. I had a big whiteboard behind me, and I started, before she came in, I started writing all of the things that I know cause cancer and science knows that cause cancer. And I just making like this big pie chart. And then what do we know that we don't talk about? And then I made a little mark. And then what is, I have a feeling, but we don't know yet. Well, what we do know, but we don't talk about, was the environmental exposures. That we know. There are environmental exposures that are connected to cancer. They are carcinogenic, even at small doses over time. That's when I started talking about environmental medicine. And that was really important because everything happens for a reason. It helped build my career because I was going on all the podcasts. Dr. G, what's the best bed? What's the best matcha? What's the best air purifier, right? And that plays an important role because when we think of the body in cancer or any disease, we think of stress, physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress, right? We're used to the emotional stress, but I will bring awareness back to that. It's like, if you come home and say, honey, I'm stressed. And then they go, oh, okay. Well, what happened? I don't know. My boss just yelled at me and put stress on me. When I hear that, I say, well, there's a part of you that you didn't allow to be expressed that needed to be expressed, like anger and being like, hey, don't talk to me like that. You're degrading me. I quit.
Yeah.
That's a truth. So we have to understand what stress on the emotional level is. Then there's the chemical one, what we're being exposed to. And then obviously the physical. If you work out too much, you're going to lose your period. That's a physical stressor. The chemical one's important because we have to think about what we're breathing in. Now more than ever, it's tough. It's tough. The EPA has allowed so many chemicals, over 80,000 since the 70s, without being properly regulated, without being properly checked. And we are sort of like these lab rats. Now, what happens is this, especially when it comes to chemical research, right? When we look at one part of it is endocrinology, the other part is toxicology. Toxicologists will go, well, the dose makes the poison. And then everyone's like, well, dose makes the poison. That's right. They're missing important pieces. One is something called a monotonic dose response. That means that a chemical, you'd kind of, when you think of a chemical, you think of it just going up, right? As more chemical, worse you get, right? More chemical, more symptoms, more chemical, more damage. Well, some chemicals like BPA that we find in plastics, actually, they have more like a bell curve, right? So yeah, right. That's really high amount of chemical, goes really high. And then all of a sudden, before at low doses, when past the EPA or FDA's regulation, then we start seeing it has the same amount of damage. It goes back up. Why? Right? So not all chemicals, it's the more you're exposed to, the worse it gets. Some is just by a little bit exposure, it's bad. A little bit more, it goes down and then it goes back up. That's like BPA, right? So that means that, for example, BPA and phthalates we're being exposed to at low doses is having an effect on us lower than what's regulated. So that's one problem. The other problem is we don't think about synergy, right? Like, what about all these chemicals together? We only look at phthalates, PFAS, BPA in a vacuum. The truth of the matter is that they're all working together. Some are endocrine disruptors. Some affect your respiratory. Some affect your immune system. We have to look at environmental medicine when it comes to any cancer. It is so important to do an audit of what's the air in my house like? What materials in my house are off-gassing? Do I have mold in my house? Right? Like all of these we don't talk about, which is crazy because I believe
they're not being studied.
They're not being studied. They're not being studied in connection enough with human disease. Because how do you study a little bit of coming from the rug, a little bit coming from the wood? How do you study someone's household like that? You know, everyone has different materials at different doses, and then we're bio-individually different. So someone's liver can metabolize better. I just said mold, like some people have the genetic mutation where they're not breaking down mold as efficiently. We're talking about 120 times less efficiently.
Right.
So those are the people in a moldy household who get sick.
That makes sense, because I was thinking about some people, like mold is natural. And so maybe people that can break it down have just been, they're genetically predispositioned to have broken it down in the past because of where they grew up, or
100%.
Yeah.
Things change. Things are changing, right? Like we have more chemicals in the environment. The houses are being built with these different materials than they were. But the truth of the matter is like environmental medicine. If you have someone in your family with cancer, or you have cancer, you got to start thinking about, what's my home like? Okay,
Yeah.
like don't go crazy. You don't need to burn your whole house down.
Yeah.
But yeah, like maybe get an air purifier for this room now, because they're going to be good. There's a lot of good HEPA, ultra HEPA air purifiers. It'll clean out the rooms really well.
Okay.
Open up your windows, and then slowly start going, okay, well, like we need a new bed. Maybe let me get a bed that doesn't off gas flame retardants, because most are, right? Especially those like the Tempur-Pedic ones that I had in college, right? But they were so comfortable.
Yeah.
But anything that, it's not only the smell too. Like you open up a Tempur-Pedic and it smells like chemicals, but some things don't smell. So just slow, like the adhesives that are in furniture, the glues, right? There's things like benzene, toluene, formaldehyde. Those are real things. I know it's not sexy to talk about.
Yeah.
But
it's empowering.
Very, very important. And then the emotional standpoint, right? I don't know what part of the pie is the emotional standpoint for cancer, but I know it's a part of the pie. Maybe 15% at least, maybe 50, maybe 90, My mom died of cancer. And for years, I was like, well, why? Okay, well, she didn't drink alcohol. She didn't smoke. She was overweight, but not really overweight. And then I start thinking about like, there's two things that happened. We had in our basement 2 years before she was diagnosed, a pipe exploded. It's New Jersey. It's like freezing cold pipes. Something happened and there was a big flood. And we didn't get it remediated the right way. Remediation is like, if the wood's damaged, they have to rip the wood out. They have to clean out the mold. They have to replace it with new, they're testing and checking that everything is fine. We just had fans drying out the rugs, that's what the guy said. Hey, we're going to fix it for you. We'll just put some fans,
Yeah. I mean, they still do that nowadays.
They still do that nowadays, right? Especially if your landlord is trying to cut corners. And viewers and listeners, make sure your landlord is not cutting corners. If you have water damage, they got to go in. They have to cut it open. You got to demand that they clean that up. And if not, then get someone to test it for you properly. Not just air samples. Going into the wall, going behind the walls, going in crawl spaces, really checking that for you, taking swabs, doing moisture meters, all of that, making sure that they're testing correctly. But for my mom, okay, I'm like, all right, well, that's something that filled up her cup, right? And not in a good way, like, oh, she fills me up. No, like fills up the toxic cup.
Yeah.
And then I thought about her emotionally. Years later, I'm talking about like 2 years ago, and she died like 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And never expressed anger. And when she did, she would blow up like once a year. Like once a year, there would just be an explosion. And that was it. Like, I would never see my mom. She would always be super sweet, super nurturing, super loving, which was beautiful parts of her.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there was any people pleasing. She also had a lot of shame. She had shame around sexuality. And I took on that shame as a kid, and I had to work through that generational trauma. That was what she passed on, as part of this. But in the context of her cancer, which was breast cancer, part of what I see is some sort of shame that is held in. And I seen it in my clients who come in with breast cancer. And maybe it's a cultural thing, because I see a lot of Latin clients who come in with breast cancer. And Latin, there's a lot of religious shame. Sex is no good. I remember anytime as a kid, there'd be naked people on movies, and that she'd run in and cover it. But like, I'm a teenager. I'm like 16 years old. We're watching a movie. I'm 18 years old. Why are you covering the screen? Like, come on, like, but there's that taboo of like, you can feel the constriction if you say a word that is too sexual. No one ever talked about sex. It's very taboo. It's not just shame, but anger plays a big role. Shame plays a big role.
And shame is such a toxic, strong emotion that if you just think of it pure from energetics, you're contracting, and it's a collapsing inward. So it's a strong emotion. So it's not
So
like
strong.
it makes sense what you're saying. I just want to
Yeah,
highlight.
so strong, so strong. The fear and shame, and my mom had a lot of fear, and that was passed on. We grew up in New York. We grew up in a neighborhood where I had to, like she said, people out there, they can hurt you. Like, oh, what the heck? This is the world,
Empathetic. Yeah.
right? So I know as her son, she was holding in a lot of emotion, a lot. I'd say my mom had massive reservoir of anger that was unrepressed, probably for her family, for her dad. Lot of sexual shame from and I talk about this freely because this is empowering. We need to know this stuff.
Yes.
And as she was here and she was healed up from everything, she'd want me to talk about this. Sadness, no. My mom would cry.
Yeah.
She see a dog commercial, adopt a dog, and she start crying. Sarah McLachlan playing,
Totally.
that's easy. But what wasn't easy? Saying I'm angry. What wasn't easy? Being like, oh, I feel like a woman. I feel sexual. Like, oh, my sexuality is beautiful, and owning it, right?
So important.
Owning her sexuality,
that it's healthy and beautiful and natural. Yeah.
But that wasn't it.
Yeah.
So I would say that. So let's think about that in cancer. What parts of us are being held in like that? What parts of us are being held in? That's a really, really important point when we think about being chronically sick.
Yeah. And I just, like, if it wasn't already motivating enough just to have a healthier, happier, freer, lighter life by doing the inner work, somatic, emotional, mental, but it actually, science is starting to find how it plays a role in our health, which makes so much sense. Disease, right? Disease. And so I just always come back to the power of learning how to navigate our inner world so that we can live more open-hearted, more open-minded, but also healthier lives.
And let me say this. Okay, so you go, okay, she was repressing emotions, right? Like you're saying, like living healthier lives, right? Becoming more motivated to this. But like this ease, you said, is you not being in ease. But what's not in ease? Well, your nervous system isn't in ease.
That's right.
So when we think of the context of my mom, repressed, continuously holding in her anger, continuously holding in that shame of like, I feel disconnected from the feminine, the true, like I'm owning myself as a woman, like the phoenix that's like blossoming out of the lake or something, like, whoa, look at that powerful, remember, anger, power, boundaries. Look at that strong woman, her full potential. What happens is when you're holding in that phoenix, your nervous system is holding that in.
Yeah.
And what happens when your nervous system is holding it in? Psychoneuroimmunology, you are repressing your immune system through your nervous system. What's important when it comes to cancer? Your immune system. Your immune system is what's monitoring your body for cancer cells, breaking them down, not letting it go awry.
Yeah.
So there is a mechanism here, and it's through the stress of the nervous system that's all those resources being held. I mean, like there was a girl with full body eczema. We did emotional release, and this massive amount of energy was expressed in her body. She was dripping in sweat. It was anger, it was sadness, it was everything. In 2 days, she had no more 90% of her body eczema. I have pictures. In 2 days. Why? It's because all those resources that her body was using to repress through the nervous system and the fascia in the body, all that energy was released. All the space was opened up. And guess what? Now the $10,000 worth of energy that was used to repress is being used now for her immune system. Her immune system go, oh my God, thank you, we can balance. Her liver's going, oh my God, thank you, we can detoxify. How in 2 days did those dark red spots become light red spots? And in 2 weeks, they were gone.
Yeah.
That's important. We have to understand it's resources in the body, and when we're holding it in. Ooh, that's the most expensive resource.
Totally. It's like that analogy of a beach ball that you're holding underwater, and when you let it go, you have all this other energy too. And your body naturally knows how to heal itself. Yeah. So you just create the environment of acceptance so that it can heal. 100%. I do want to be clear though, because I know we focused a bit on anger, and I think that's important because people don't normally express their relationship with anger or allow the energy of anger. But even if somebody wants to work with anger, or somebody wants to work on feeling sad and feeling safe to feel sad, you don't have to do it with someone else to start. And you can do journaling practices to journal, letting anger speak directly, letting sadness have a voice. It's not who you are, but you allow it. It's more of a Gestalt psychotherapy practice where you speak from, I'm angry, and like letting anger speak directly as first person present tense. You can do that through talking, through journaling, through sounding, through movement. So at least then people don't feel like they're just going to unconsciously spew on another relationship, or
Right.
if they don't know that there's context or safety for that. Obviously, working with a trained coach that's
Yeah.
good, a therapist,
Mhm.
a friend that can hold space, even boxing practice to start
Oh,
getting
the
the
best. I
anger
box.
out. Yeah,
I box once a week.
it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, in high school, I had so much anger that I, feel getting bullied by these girls.
Yeah.
And I would just, when that teardrop, I would just box and just getting it out.
Boom,
Yeah, it
boom,
was
boom, boom, boom,
good.
boom. Yeah.
It helped. But having a relationship with all of our emotions, even if we take those basic 6, not repressing them, but being able to allow them to express them in a safe place, whether that be through your friend or you're, doing it on your own, or if you feel safe enough in the relationship to navigate it. We're not going to blame, you made me feel this way. It's
Right.
like the story I made up was, and sometimes we can do the work on our own and then take it to the relationship, or a more masterful next level is to learn how to do it in relationship. So both are important, but let yourself work your way up. Sometimes people are just at the stage where they're becoming aware of, even myself, like sometimes I haven't slowed down enough to check in with my friends were like, I'll go with you to your biopsy appointment. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm usually like, I got it. I'm good. And then I was going to bed last night and I'm like, that really moved me that one of my best friends was like, I'll be there for you.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know it until I went to bed. And I was like, oh, that was important to a part of me, just to say that somebody was there for me. And it's like, I have been doing this work for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And for somebody that like, just so we don't, we humble ourselves to slow down, to keep listening to the parts that we may have not realized were there. I think it's important, if you want to go faster, slow down with the inner work is 100% the way. And so starting to become aware of what we really, what our patterns and dynamics are, then having choice to express and find healthy outlets. And from there, we have more of that energy. That beach ball is you're no longer suppressing it and using your energy to hold it down. You can create a life that is fulfilling, is more present, more open-hearted, more aligned for ourselves. And so
we need that.
Yeah.
We need, and you said it best, like what you have to tune in, take a moment and tune in what feels good for you. If you are drawn more towards dancing than writing in a journal,
Yeah.
then dance shame, dance anger,
Yeah.
dance fear, dance guilt, right?
Yeah.
But if you were really like, I like to have my feet up in nature and just let it all out on a paper, then do that too. If you like both, do both.
Yeah.
But find what's working for you.
That's right. We need awareness and then expression,
Yeah.
acceptance and expression, because if we dance it and we're not aware, then that pattern can just suck us into unconscious shame. So having awareness of the pattern and then expressing it in whatever form. Yes. And then aligned action naturally comes from there. And shame was so gripping for me. I just want to speak to this. If people feel paralyzed in shame the way I did, start looking at shame a little bit more objectively rather than taking it personally and subjectively. Look at what does shame feel like in my body? When do I feel shame? Where might this have come from? So you're starting to get space and you're not identifying with it. And then yes, dance the shame and have a relationship with it. So it's allowed, but it's not judged and it's not identified with.
Yeah. That's with the assumption that we know where we're holding shame. We feel it and we're ready to give it a movement or give it a voice or give it a something, like you said. But you need the awareness.
That's
Otherwise, if you're in your head the whole time and you're in the stories, the dance isn't going to be authentically moving.
It's cut off.
Right? It's going to be cut off. It's going to be cut off. So the awareness, I love that you said aligned action too. I know where that came from.
Yeah.
So taking that action is going to be so important. And like, again, to reiterate, you can connect to this work with yourself.
That's right.
You could do it with yourself in your living room, in your apartment, right? You just, it's that awareness and know that your body has answers and knows if you listen, it will show you what it needs to show you. I promise. That's my promise to everyone out here.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can afford it, or you have, my experience is having somebody hold, especially if we have big T trauma, having somebody hold can also accelerate. And I want that for the planet. I'm excited for some of the technology that's going to make healing scalable. through nervous system tracking,
Oh, we
becoming
need it.
aware. And we won't geek out on that conversation right now, but like that excites me about where we're going with technology and AI and the ability to do that.
Yeah, and let me say this quick, like you want to have an idea about where your nervous system is.
Yeah.
You can look at heart rate variability.
Yeah.
It is a real direct connection to the state of your nervous system. And how fast does your nervous system go back into parasympathetic? How strongly flexible? If it expands like a rubber band, when can it go back to normal? So if you're running and your heart's beating, how fast do you come back to safe? Your heart slows down. Now you're just back to normal. The same goes with stress. And heart rate variability is a really important parameter. Like look at your number when you first test it and make it a goal to go up. And how? Sleep, walking is after meals or just whenever you can, getting a good amount of steps a day.
Yeah.
Exercise, but not over exercising. The meditations, the somatic work, those are all known evidence-based interventions that you can do to improve your heart rate variability. And in my course, everyone tests their heart rate variability every 2 weeks.
Cool.
So we go over it over and over, the whole cohort, because I want to know that their nervous systems are getting more resilient.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to know. And part of the process is making sure your environment is safe. So I have them connect to nature. I have them, if they're scared of people, I have them actually compliment people once a day.
That's good. Yeah.
Right? Just as something to go, whoa, it's not that bad. Actually, people aren't that bad.
That's right.
Even if the assumption is the world is not safe.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, you're retraining your nervous system and then doing the inner somatic healing work. Singing and dancing is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that'll
and every culture has done that throughout time.
Yeah. And how come we don't celebrate it? How come we're not around fires on a Saturday doing that with our friends? Maybe this is too hippie, but I want to do it.
Yeah. I got a fireplace. Let's do
come
it.
on, let's do it. I'm so down for that because it's like, I know that there's so much value in community, right? Big thing about community. We feel disconnected, alone. Our nervous system doesn't feel safe alone. Why? Because it's not a survival strategy. We're supposed to be with people. We're supposed to be healing and moving and living with people, and not necessarily in a commune, but at least in a tribe.
Yeah.
Our family, our loved ones, not being alone. But like singing and dancing is telling your nervous system, anyone ever run away from a bear and sing and dance while you're running away from a bear? Of course not. You run away from the bear, everything's safe. A few hours later, you eat, you hear a good song, and then you start dancing, right? It's because you need to be in safety. But what a signal it is if you start practicing it every day. And singing is the best because it opens up your voice. So you're not singing from up here. You're actually singing from down here, and you're creating this voice that's coming from your belly, filling up your shower, wherever you are, your living room. Your partner hears. You're not afraid. You're not in shame of your voice. A lot of us have been told, hey, your voice is terrible.
Yeah.
Don't sing anymore.
Yeah.
And then we go, when we were kids, we would sing. It doesn't matter how we sound. We just wanted to sing the joy in our hearts.
Yeah.
We got joy in our hearts too.
Yeah.
Singing, dancing, move the hips, move that energy. Yeah. It's some beautiful stuff.
It's like what I'm hearing is, and I know this also is, it's like both approaches help expression.
Yeah.
And the more we express, the more it signals to our nervous system that we're safe, that we're authentically allowed. All the parts of us are allowed, which also further supports our health and well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of us, the fear of moving our body and the fear of being heard, right? So moving is sort of like this expression of like, see me, like I'm dancing. A lot of us are scared to dance because we don't think we're good dancers. A lot of us are scared to sing because we don't think we have a good voice. Both are very important for expression. How do we move in space and how do we sound in space? And we can actually be in our power in both. Even if we're walking to the supermarket up and down the aisles, we could still walk in our power. And there's a difference.
Yes.
So the more we dance, we allow that fluid movement. Our fascia has that signal. Our nervous system has a signal that, oh, I can move. My body moves like this. Oh, I'm actually a little bit more sensual than I thought I was. Or, wow, look at my feminine power. I feel grounded in my power. And our voice, we're able to express that power.
Yeah.
This is why it's such a fantastic combination. So I actually would urge everyone, hey, dance a little bit. I get,
move your hips.
Even if we're sad for the day, we will not be sad when we're dancing.
Yeah.
Well, tears may come out, but we'll feel good when we're done.
And you can even listen to a song that matches the frequency of the sadness.
Exactly.
And it allows it to come up and out. And if it's longer than 90 seconds, you're indulging in it. right? And so just be aware of that. And then,
Yes.
okay, notice the thought that created the sadness, and then keep staying present in what's true in the moment.
It's longer than 90 seconds. That's so important.
Yeah.
That's such a good barometer too. But make a playlist.
Totally.
Like make a I'm sad playlist.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm joyful playlist. Ooh, I
Yeah.
feel really sexy today playlist.
Yeah.
And start playing them for yourself.
Yeah.
Start tuning in, because then that's a great way to tune in the mornings. How do I feel right now? How do I feel today? I feel kind of angry today. Oh my God, let me put on my heavy metal playlist and start bashing some pillows in my room or something, you know?
Yeah. I like that. It's like sadness, maybe sadness playlist instead of I'm sad. So there's not identity in it,
Right.
but sadness and allowing sadness, like
Exactly.
dancing as sadness with sadness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What a beautiful.
There's so much. Dr. G, Christian, I love you so much. There's like, I want to just go deeper, and I'm aware of our time. I know that my audience is going to want to hear more about what you're up to. Share with us what you're doing in the world.
Oh, so we were talking off air. I launched a Somatic course, and that is teaching people how to do this emotional release, how to use their hands. But it's a very special course because you're also undergoing your own healing. It's not a lot of courses like that. Yours is, right? Like we actually have to like kind of face some stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I love that design. So I was like, okay, this is how courses should be. People should, you have to.
Yes.
You have to be able to heal and hold more so you can hold another.
That's right.
So this work is about that. You go through your own process. You have your own homework. You got your own manual. And there's knowledge, wisdom, and you're learning how to do these practices. So the next one launches September 1st. We had our first cohort. We're going next week. I'm doing the hands-on one in San Diego. I can't wait for this.
Yeah.
And Instagram is Gonzalez with 2 Z's. And most of my information I'm putting out there. The website is docgonzalez.com. I've been busy, and just watch out for me. You know, I'm out here doing some cool stuff.
Yeah, you are. We'll put all the links in the show notes.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, and what you're doing in the world is so important.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a difference. And if you're finding value in this podcast, a cost-free way to support us is by leaving an up to 5-star review. It does mean the world to us. And as a thank you gift, we're going to send you one of the most powerful tools that you will ever discover. You're going to get behind the scenes access showing you how to live into your full potential without letting fear hold you back from stepping into your dreams. Just head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave a review now. You can take a screenshot before hitting submit, and then go to alyssanobriga.com/podcast to upload it. And make sure to have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much magic I can't wait to share with you. And you can find all this information in the show notes below. But lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello. I'm at Alyssa Nobriga. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you.